In the summer of 605 BC, a teenage captive named Daniel was dragged in chains from the ruined streets of Jerusalem across hundreds of miles of desert to the heart of the ancient world, the Babylonian Empire. He wasn't taken to be a laborer. He was selected to be re-educated, stripped of his culture, his language, his faith, and even his name, and placed inside the dark, occult courts of King Nebuchadnezzar. It was inside those very courts that Daniel wrote down a sequence of visions so dangerous, so mathematically precise, and so structurally flawless that centuries later, secular historians and critics would spend decades attempting to prove the book was a forgery. Why? Because Daniel's writings didn't just record ancient history. They mapped out the exact rise, expansion, internal characteristics, and ultimate collapse of 4 consecutive world superpowers thousands of years before some of them even existed. If you pull back the theological jargon and look strictly at the architecture of these prophecies, you quickly discover something startling. The Book of Daniel isn't just an ancient religious text. It is a linear, active countdown timer spanning 2,500 years of human empire. And if Daniel's timeline was 100% accurate regarding the fall of Babylon, the rise of Medo-Persia, the explosive conquests of Greece, and the iron grip of Rome, it means the final phase marked on his map is already set in motion. Welcome back to Truth Made Clear. Today we are decoding the 2,500-year-old timeline that secular history couldn't erase, and uncovering the exact point on the map where our modern world is standing right now. To understand this 2,500-year blueprint, we have to start with a night of pure terror in the royal palace of Babylon. King Nebuchadnezzar, the absolute monarch who ruled the known world with an iron fist, woke up in a cold sweat. He had experienced a dream so terrifying, so heavy with supernatural weight that his spirit was deeply troubled. But there was a catch. When he called his elite council of astrologers, sorcerers, and magicians, he refused to tell them what he saw. He demanded that they prove their mystical powers by revealing both the dream and its interpretation, under threat of execution. They failed. They openly admitted to the king, "There is not a man on earth who can reveal the king's matter, except the gods whose dwelling is not with flesh." Enter Daniel. After seeking the God of heaven in prayer, Daniel stood before the ruler of the world and delivered what would become the founding framework of biblical prophecy. Daniel told the king, "You saw a colossal, terrifying statue standing before you. Its shine was brilliant and its form was dreadful. The head was made of fine gold. Its chest and arms were made of silver. Its belly and thighs were made of bronze. Its legs were made of iron. And its feet were a bizarre mix of iron and miry clay." Then, as Nebuchadnezzar watched in the dream, a massive stone was cut out of a mountain without human hands. It flew through the air, struck the statue at its feet of iron and clay, and pulverized the entire structure into dust so fine that the wind swept it away like chaff from a summer thrashing floor. But the stone that struck the image grew into a massive mountain that filled the entire earth. Daniel then dropped the bombshell, "You are this head of gold." Babylon was the Golden Empire. From 606 BC to 539 BC, Babylon dominated the ancient world with unmatched opulence, golden temples, and absolute royal power. But Daniel didn't stop there. He looked at the supreme monarch of the ancient world and uttered 5 words that seemed insane at the time. "After you shall arise another kingdom." Think about the sheer courage and precision of that statement. Babylon seemed immortal. Its walls were over 300 feet high and thick enough for chariots to race side by side, yet Daniel declared that gold would give way to silver, silver to bronze, bronze to iron, and iron to a fractured mix of clay. What Daniel laid out in chapter 2 was not a metaphor, it was a chronological roadmap of world history. 1. The chest of silver, Medo-Persia 539 BC, 331 BC. In October 539 BC, while the Babylonian elite were drinking wine out of stolen temple vessels, Cyrus the Great of Persia diverted the Euphrates River, marched his troops under the river gates, and took the city in a single night without a fight. The Medo-Persian Empire replaced Babylon. Why was it represented by silver? Because silver was the monetary baseline of the Persian economy. Persia collected massive taxes in silver bullion. Furthermore, the statue had 2 arms of silver, reflecting the dual alliance between the Medes and the Persians, where the Persians eventually became the dominant arm. 2. The thighs of bronze, Greece 331 BC. 168 BC. Daniel told Nebuchadnezzar that a third kingdom of bronze would rule over the earth. 200 years after Daniel wrote those words, a 20-year-old king named Alexander the Great stormed out of Macedonia. In less than a decade, Alexander conquered the entire known world with unprecedented speed. His soldiers were famously known as the brazen-coated Greeks because their body armor, shields, helmets, and battle axes were forged entirely of bronze. When Alexander defeated Darius II at the Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BC, the bronze thighs took their exact place on Daniel's prophetic timeline. 3. The legs of iron, Rome 168 BC, 476 AD. Finally, Daniel described a fourth kingdom as strong as iron. Forasmuch as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, so shall it break in pieces and bruise. In 168 BC at the Battle of Pydna, the iron-disciplined legions of the Roman Empire crushed the Greek phalanx. Rome became the longest-lasting, most ruthless military superpower the ancient Mediterranean had ever seen. For over 600 years, Rome ruled with an iron fist, crucified dissidents along its highways, levied brutal taxes, and crushed any state that resisted its dominion. Notice the detail: 2 legs of iron. When Rome eventually split in 395 AD, it divided into 2 distinct political hubs, the Western Roman Empire based in Rome and the Eastern Roman Empire based in Constantinople. Look at the progression: gold right arrow, silver right arrow, bronze right arrow, iron. The metal decreases in financial value but increases dramatically in physical hardness and military force. Daniel's timeline was executing with 100% historical accuracy. Decades passed, Babylon was falling and Daniel was now an old man. God returned to Daniel in chapter 7 with a second vision covering the exact same timeline, but this time, from a completely different perspective. Nebuchadnezzar had seen human empires as a majestic, shining metallic idol because humans view world power as glorious. But God showed Daniel what human empires actually look like from heaven's perspective: ferocious, unnatural, predatory beasts rising out of a stormy, dark sea. 1. The lion with eagle's wings, Babylon. Daniel saw a winged lion. If you walk through the Pergamon Museum today, you can see the surviving glazed brick walls of Babylon's Ishtar Gate decorated with images of winged lions. But Daniel saw its wings plucked, representing how Nebuchadnezzar was brought low by God, losing his pride and power. 2. The bear raised up on one side, Medo-Persia. Next came a lopsided bear with 3 ribs in its mouth. The bear was raised up on one side because Persia was significantly stronger than Media. The 3 ribs in its jaws represented the 3 major military powers Medo-Persia devoured to gain dominion: Lydia, Babylon, and Egypt. 3. The 4-headed leopard, Greece. Then Daniel saw a leopard with 4 birds' wings on its back and 4 heads. A leopard is fast, but a leopard with wings represents hyperspeed. Alexander the Great conquered the Persian world in under 12 years, but look at the most incredible detail: it had 4 heads. When Alexander died suddenly in Babylon at age 32 without leaving an heir, his military empire was divided among his 4 chief generals: Lysimachus, Cassander, Seleucus, and Ptolemy. 4 heads, written centuries before it came to pass. 4. The terrible 4th beast, Rome. Finally, Daniel saw a monster so horrifying, so violent, and so alien that he couldn't name an earthly animal to describe it. It had massive iron teeth, crushed its prey beneath its feet, and had 10 horns on its head. Now we arrive at the critical question: where are we on Daniel's timeline right now? Look closely at what happens after the 4th beast and the legs of iron. Notice that the timeline does not introduce a 5th major superpower. The statue doesn't transition into a head of platinum or legs of titanium. Instead, the iron legs split into 10 toes made of iron mixed with miry clay. When the Western Roman Empire collapsed in 476 AD, it was not conquered by a single world superpower. Instead, it fractured into barbarian tribes that eventually formed the modern nations of Western Europe. Daniel recorded this exact geopolitical reality 1,000 years before it happened. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. Think about what that prophecy means. For 1,500 years, powerful political leaders have tried to forcibly reunite the fractured pieces of the Roman Empire into a single European superstate. Charlemagne tried it in the 8th century. Charles V tried it in the 16th century. Napoleon Bonaparte tried it in the 19th century. Adolf Hitler tried it in the 20th century. Every single one of them failed. Why? Because 2,500 years ago a Hebrew prophet wrote 4 words that dictated the boundary of European politics. They shall not cleave. Iron and clay cannot form a permanent bond. We are not living in the head of gold. We are not living in the chest of silver, the thighs of bronze, or the legs of iron. We are standing on the feet of iron and clay. The sequence of human empires is complete. There are no more metallic phases left on Daniel's map. Which brings us to the final event on the 2,500-year-old code. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. It shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. The rock cut out without human hands is the return of Jesus Christ and the establishment of his eternal kingdom. It doesn't negotiate with human empires, it strikes the statue at its base and replaces the broken systems of this world entirely. History isn't spinning out of control. It is moving along a precise, divine timeline. The countdown that predicted the rise and fall of Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome is sitting on its very last line. If Daniel's map was 100% accurate for the last 2,500 years, you can be absolute certain the final chapter will take place exactly as written. Thank you for watching Truth Made Clear. If this video helped you understand the depth and reliability of biblical prophecy, make sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a like, and share this with someone who needs to see the bigger picture. Until next time, keep testing everything against the Word and let the truth be made clear.